Welcome to another tutorial. In this tutorial, we learn about databases in general and about Microsoft Access database in particular. Microsoft Access is a relational database management system designed primarily for home or small business usage. Access is known as a desktop database system because its functions are intended to be run from a single computer. This is in contrast to a server database application such as SQL Server, where it is intended to be installed on a server then accessed remotely for multiple client machines. Specifically, this tutorial introduces you to the following. Number one, we have the general idea behind a database, learning a new database, creating a database template, adding records to a new existing database, viewing the data in a database, creating entries and record from a database. We have an overview of the database concept. The database components of Microsoft Office is designed to act as an intelligent electronic filing cabinet. Like a manual filing cabinet, it enables you to collect a set of related data and keep the data organized. Update the data once you have corrected them by adding or deleting records and by changing existing record. An electronic filing cabinet, such as the database, allows you to also easily and quickly use the data, sort them, create reports, merge the data, and with other documents and so forth. Another question to ask ourselves is how a database is organized. Access is an object-oriented relational database management system. Within files, different terminologies is used to describe the organization of data depending on the type of file in question. For example, word processed files tend to organize data in paragraphs and sentences. Spreadsheet files organize the data in rows and columns. Database files organize the data into records and fields. And I am going to show you a good example of what I mean. We have the Access database objects. And number one, we have a table. A table is an object which represents the data in rows and columns, rather like a spreadsheet. For this reason, when you view a table in Access database, you are in what Access refers to as a datasheet view. And then we have queries. Queries is an object which makes a request to the database to find some set of data that is stored in the database. And then we have a form, another object. A form is an object which gives the user another view of the data in a database, whereas a table allows the user to view multiple records at once. A form displays the content of just one record at a time. And then we have a report. A report is an object which is designed based on the data in the database and which is used to inform the user of the selected contents of the database. And then another object is a macro. A macro is a sequence of instructions which can be carried out with a single click of the mouse button on a button in a toolbar or by pressing a key or keys on the keyboard. And then you have a page. A page is a special type of web page designed for viewing and working with data from the internet. This access feature is beyond the scope of this tutorial. Finally, another access object is called module. A module is a collection of programming procedures designed to give programmer control over the Access database look and feel. The objects that we are going to cover are table, queries, forms, reports, and macros. In this tutorial, we are going to learn about a table, and we interact with several elements that comprise a table. We said a table is an object which stores data in row and column format. A table is usually related to other tables in the database file. Each column must have a unique name. We can also define primary key in a table. But before we begin, we said we are going to learn how to plan a new database. And I have a good example. Here we have an example of a database, and we are going to use this to design the objects that we have mentioned. And it's clear of how you design a template. I have used different colors to represent different components. This green represents the database name that I have used. We are going to use a hospital to create a database. And then under that, we have some tables that you're going to include. We have a patient table, we have a doctor's table, and we have a medicine table. And you can see I've represented the tables in this color, and you can call them tables or tuples. Under the tables, we'll include fields, these ones that we have here. The patient will have patient ID, patient name, all the way to doctor's ID, which will be a foreign key, but we'll cover that. And then we have doctor's record. In the doctor's record, we have certain fields that are included. Under medicine, we have some fields included. On this other slide, I have the records themselves. You can see here, I've used doctor's table. And under the doctor's table, we had the fields which are here. Under them, we have now the records which are indicated here. Like, for example, we have D001, which represents the doctor ID. And then the first name of the doctor is Philip. The last name of the doctor is Jenga. Gender is male. Department is cardiology. So this is an example of the records. Hope you have understood. So we'll have a database, we'll have tables, and then we'll have fields to include, and then we have records. So these make up a database. And then out of the table that we have, we'll be able to create queries, and we'll be able to create forms, and also we'll be able to create reports. How to start Microsoft Access? It's very easy. You have to come to Start. Mine is already here, but you can search by writing Microsoft Office Access 203, or maybe if you're using another version like this one, you could just choose that. I'm going to use 203. When you open, it's going to prompt you to this window. You can see it's blank. If you want to open a new database, you're going to come to File, and then you click New. Or you could press Ctrl N on your keyboard, or you could press this, or you could come here and create a new file. I'm just going to create a new file here, and it's going to prompt you with this window here, and I'm going to create a new blank database here. You press, and when you press, it's going to ask you to save your file. We are going to call it hospital database. And then after you have given it a name, you're going to create. Now, after you create, it's going to prompt you with this window. And on this side, you can see the objects that we are talking about are well represented here. You have tables, you have queries, you have forms, you have reports, you have pages, macros, modules. In this tutorial, we're going to cover about tables, and we are going to learn how to create a table and how to do other things like sorting, freezing, hiding some columns, adjusting columns, etc. We have some elements, and here we have the menu bar. Here we have the standard toolbar. And then this window is the one that is going to help us to create the objects that we mentioned. And then over here we have minimize, and then we have maximize, Then you have maximize, and then you have close. This is for closing the window. Now, I think we are going to start by creating the tables that we have. We said we are going to use this example of a hospital database, and we are going to include patient records, doctor's record, and medicine records. How do you create a table? We have 3 ways you can create a table. You can create a table using design view. You can create a table using wizard. You can create a table by entering data. In this tutorial, we are going to create a table in design view. You are going to click here, or you can click here. And when you double click, it's going to prompt you with this window. We're going to first create a table for the doctor. And since we have a template here, we're going to use it to create. I'm going to come back to this window and we start entering data. We start with doctor's records. In doctors, we have the doctor ID. Doctor ID. Here is where you enter the field name, the one that we talked about, the doctor ID. And then we have the data type. We have several. We have text, we have memo, we have number, date and time, currency, auto number, yes or no, OLE object, hyperlink, and we have lookup wizard. These are the data type of certain field name. I'm going to explain how each and every data type work or when you use it. Text include numbers, which does not need calculation, example mobile numbers, names, etc. Then we have number. A number is a numeric data used for storing mathematical calculations. Then you have the date and time, this one. Date and time stores date, time for years from 100 through 9,999. And then we have currency. It allows you to store currency values and numerical data, each 1 to 4 decimal places. And then we have auto number. Auto number assign a unique number or assigned by Microsoft Access when any new record is created, usually used as the primary key. And then you have yes or no. Yes or no, it only stores logical values, yes and no. For example, if you are asking somebody, are you a male? A yes or no question. And then we have the OLE object. OLE object can store audio, video, other binary, large objects. And then we have the hyperlink. Hyperlink stores combination of text and numbers. That text is used as hyperlink address. And then we have the lookup wizard. That one we won't cover for now. And for now, the doctor's ID, since we are going to use a mixture of both numbers and letters, we are going to use text. And then we'll have doctor's first name. You separate using an underscore. And how do you add an underscore? You press shift on your keyboard and minus. And it's going to create underscore. And then you write first name. First name is under text because it combines letters and maybe symbols. And then we have doctor, last name, text, we have gender, text, and then we have department, text, Now we have a primary key. Primary key uniquely identifies a certain record. For example, we use doctor's ID as a primary key. What that means is when you enter a certain record, in that table, you won't repeat that record again. That's what we mean by uniquely identify a certain record. Other examples of data that you can use as a primary key include the ID number, which is unique for everybody. Phone number is unique to everybody. Email address is unique from one person to the other. So you're going to select, and then you're going to add primary key here, or you could right click on it and add primary key. Simple as that. How to save your table? You can save it from here. You click there, and then you're going to give your table a name. You're going to call it doctor table. Then you press OK. And then you can close. And now you can see here you have a doctor's table. When you open it, you will see here you have the field name indicated on top here. If you want to adjust this doctor's first name so that they can be seen clearly, you come here at the intersection and you're going to see this plus sign icon. You press the left mouse button, then you drag on your right until it is visible, like that. Now we have field name, but we don't have the records. We are going to come back to it. But let's create the other two tables. We use a design view. We have patient. I'm going to fast forward so that we can save time. You can notice I've included medicine ID and doctor's ID, and they exist in other two tables for the doctors and for the medicine. Medicine ID, I'm going to use medicine ID as a primary key, and doctor's ID, I've used it as a primary key. In this instance, they appear in patient's table as foreign key. A foreign key is a set of attributes in a table that refers to the primary key of another table. The foreign key links these two tables. Now let's save our table. Here, you click save, and then we close, and we have the patient table. Now let's create the other one. Create table in design view. Medicine ID. Medicine name. Their data type will be text, since we use a mixture of numbers and letters and some symbols. And then this will be our primary key. And then you're going to save it. We call it medicine. Table. Then you say OK. And then now we close. Now we are going to enter data to our tables or the records. Now we start with doctor's table. Here we have several fields. We have doctor ID, we have doctor's first name, doctor's last name, gender and department. We are going to specify some records and they are going to be random. And for the doctor ID, I'm going to use D, represent doctor, and give them a serial number, random. Let me start with D201, first name, Alan Koech. If you want to edit, you just have to click inside and rectify, mail, department, anesthetics. The second record is now let me explain something. In this column where you have doctor's ID, you notice that all these numbers are unique to each other, and that's why I chose it as our primary key. Now let's see what happens when I duplicate one of the records, D001 or 2, and I come and add some details. When I come to the next record, it's going to display this error message, and it says the changes you requested to the table are not successful because they would create a duplicate value in the index, comma, primary key, comma, or relationship. Change the data in the field or fields that contain duplicate data, remove the index or redefine the index to permit duplicate entries, and try again. That means you have repeated your primary key and it should be unique. Now maybe we should change this to D0011. Now we don't have that error because now we have a clean record where you don't have duplicates in doctor's ID. That's what we mean by a primary key. It should be unique. If you want to delete this record, you just select it, hit click, delete record, and yeah, okay. Now let's go to the medicine table. We have medicine ID and medicine name. I'm going to use M and then a serial. And we are done. Right in the records, you save and then you say yes, or you could come here and save and then close. And then now we have this patient table. Now we have the 3 tables. Here where we have date of birth, we can come to design view and we could come here, date of birth, and here under format, we could specify the format that we want. I want to use this medium date. And when you do that, then for the appointment date, let's use medium date format, medium. And then when you finish, you save, you close, and then you save, yes. And let's continue. Date of birth. Appointment date. Medicine ID. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to resize this window. Then we open these two tables. Now I want to create a relationship between the three tables. We are going to give medicine and a doctor's ID randomly. So under medicine ID, we are going to give maybe that patient was given this medicine. I said it's random, and maybe the patient was treated by this doctor. That way. The three tables have the records. Now when you enter in this doctor's table and maybe you want to add another column, you just come to design view and then you come down here and then you can add. Maybe if you wanted that record to be in between the gender and department, you could come here, right click, you select first, you select, I come in here, then you right click, then you press insert row. It's going to insert a new row. You can add a record and specify the data type, and then when you finish, you can save and then close. Now when you open, you're going to see it and you're going to add the records, but for now I want to add a new column. We said if you want to adjust, you have to look for this and you can drag the column either inwards or inside. And then if you want to sort the data, you have to select. If you want to sort using maybe first name, you select, and then you come here or you come to records and then you come to sort, and then you sort in descending order. Now you can see the name have started from Zephaniah to Agnes. And then if you want to sort again in ascending, you're going to select ascending, just come here. Okay, now I hope it's clear. The other thing that we can do with this is to maybe you find that we have doctor's first name and doctor's last name, and you want to start with doctor's last name, you have to select and then you drag all the way to where you want to put it. If you want it to be the last one, drag and then you bring it there. But let's return it. So you drag and then use this black line to guide you, and then you put it there and you're done. The other thing that we can learn is how to copy a table. If you want to copy this doctor's table, you just have to right click and then you copy and then you paste. Going to copy. Now it's going to ask you to put a name, and we can say doc copy, and then we say okay. We have a doctor's copy, and here it is. That's how you create a copy. Now let's delete it. You just press delete key on your keyboard, and this message is going to prompt you to say yes, and you're done. Now, I hope you have understood about tables. We have already known how to create tables, how to add columns of the fields, and how to add records inside the field names. Let's meet in the other lesson where you learn about queries. Welcome to another tutorial. In this tutorial, we learn about queries. In the previous lesson, we learned about tables and we created these three tables that we have here. And now you are going to learn about queries. And we said a query is a request for data results and for an action on data. And then you can use a query to answer a simple question, also to perform calculation, also to combine data from different tables, or even add, change, or delete table data. As a table grows in size, there can be hundreds of thousands of records, which makes it impossible for the user to pick out specific records from that table. Another thing is that with a query, you can apply a filter to the table's data so that you can get information that you want. You could use a query to supply data for a form or a report. In a well-designed database, the data that you want to represent by using a form or a report is often called in several tables. Now, I'm going to show you how to use queries, but before I start showing you, let's learn about relationship, because our tables must have a relationships so that we can link them. We are going to cover 3 of them. We have a one-to-one relationship, and then we have one-to-many, and we have many-to-many relationship. One-to-one relationship is where you link a primary key and a primary key. When we say one-to-one relationship is when we link a primary key with a primary key. And since a primary key is unique in each and every table, that means you're going to link one record in one table and another one record in another table. And then you have one-to-many. One-to-many is where you link one table, one record in a table, and then you link to several records in the other table. For example, we have a student and we have units. So we can say a student, one student, is doing many courses or many units. And then we have many-to-many. Many-to-many is where you link several items in one table and several items in the other table. And for instance, and a good example is when you can say customers buys items in a supermarket. So it forms one table. In one table for customer, we have several customers, and then you have another table for items where these customers buy several items from the supermarket. I hope you have understood. Now you are dealing with customer and items. I've used plural to represent many-to-many. Now I'm going to show you how to create these relationships. Not that hard. Now you're going to come to tools, and then you will see relationship, and we are going to use the 3 tables, and you're going to add, or you could just pick one, add, pick another one, add, pick another one, add. Now you have these 3 tables, and drag them like that and like that. Now you want to create a relationship between these 3 tables. Now you can remember in the tables lesson, I said I used the medicine ID and doctor's ID as a foreign key. Now you can see we have this doctor's ID, medicine ID, and patient ID are bold because they are primary keys. What we mean by foreign key is that it is used in a table, but it already exists in other tables as a primary key. Now this medicine ID is a primary key for medicine table, and doctor's ID is a primary key in doctor's table. Now I'm going to link a patient table to medicine using the primary key and the foreign key in patient table. And how do you do that? You drag using the leftmost button, and then you come and point to where you have medicine ID. Now it's going to form a one-to-many relationship because medicine ID appears only once in this medicine table, but it might appear in patient table several times. Here you can see the relationship type is one-to-many, and you have linked medicine ID and doctor's ID. Now I wanted to create medicine ID with medicine ID like that. But again, you could change it over here, and then you create. Now we have a relationship of these 2 tables where I have linked medicine ID with medicine ID. We saw in this medicine ID represent one record, but when you diagnose a patient and you administer medicine to that patient, you could give several patients the same medicine. I hope you're getting it. Now, we are going to go back to the relationships here. And now we want to link doctor's ID with doctor's ID. If, for example, maybe I wanted to link doctor's ID with patient ID, it's going to create one-to-one relationship because there is no repetition of doctor's ID. There's no repetition of patient ID. I hope you understand why we form one-to-one relationship. And let me try so that you can see. Now you see here it's one-to-one because both of them are primary key, and primary keys don't repeat themselves. Now I'm going to link doctor's ID with doctor's ID, this one, and I'm going to create. And when you finish, you close. I'm going to ask you to save, and you're going to say yes. And now we have relationship between the three tables. Now let's create queries. I'm going to come to query. You can use either query design view or query by using wizard. Let's use this one, and then we come back to design view. When you double click, it's going to bring you to this window, and we want to create query maybe for patient table only. You just only want to pick several field names from patient table. If you wanted to pick all of the details from this table, you could just press this one. This means the available fields means the records that are in that table, and then you come to the other side, on my right hand side, we have the selected fields, which includes the fields that have been selected so that they can be visible in our query. But I just want us to have several, maybe patient name and maybe appointment date, only that. Now you can see available fields, they are available, but I have not selected them. In this other side, I have already selected the fields. Now I'm going to come to next. Then you're going to give your query a name. Let me call it patient query. And then you finish. Now you can see we have a query that only has patient name and appointment date. Now this is what a query does. It filters certain records that they can be visible. And now you can see we have patient name and appointment date. Let's create another query where we link several tables, maybe the three of them. Now we are going to come back to this query wizard, and we are going to select a doctor's first name and maybe doctor's last name, and then we are going to come to this table called patient table and maybe pick a patient name, and then we come to medicine table and we pick medicine name. Now we have data from the three tables, and now you're going to go to next, and you're going to say maybe combined query, and you're going to finish. Since we had created a relationship, now you can see we have the details from doctor's table, a patient, and medicine. We have Jackson Maura, Arnold Kipkoech, a patient, and was administered this medicine. Now you can see we have a relationship in the three tables. The next thing we are going to use is design view, query design view, and we are going to add maybe doctor's table, add all of them, and then you close. You can see the relationship is well indicated. If you want to add this record, you can double click and then double click, or you could come here. You first select the table, medicine, and then you come on top here, select medicine name. Then you come here, you choose the table first, patient table. And then you come here and choose a patient name. Now, I want to show you how to sort using design view. How to sort a query using design view. First, we have filtered some records from the 3 tables. I want us to sort, maybe using a doctor's first name. Now you're going to come here where you have sort, and then you left click. Then you specify if you want ascending or descending. Ascending is where you arrange from A to Z, and descending is where you arrange from Z to A. Now let's choose ascending, and then you press run over here. And when you press, you can see it has arranged the records using doctor's first name, and then here is the query. And when you come here, you can save the query, and you can give it a name like sorted. And then you can say okay. And when you close, we have that query that we have created using a design view. The other thing that we can do, now we want to learn how to filter using a full name. And how do you do that? We use design view to do that. Let's just use a doctor's table only. And maybe we include first name and last name. Maybe we want to query. Let us come back to the table and see the records that we have. We have Agnes, we have Alan, and then maybe want to see the details for maybe Alan Quech. We come back to our query, and we use first name to get the details for Alan. We'll come here where you have criteria, and we'll write the name in full, Alan, and then we'll hit the run button, and you can see the details for Alan Quech. That's simple. I'm going to repeat. You come to query design view, and then use doctor, and you can put doctor's ID, first name, last name, gender, and then doctor's first name, and then you hit run. And now you can see the details for Dr. Allen, and they are indicated there. Now let's query for the doctors who are either male or female. Let's choose the male. Then we are going to come to design, query design view. Choose a doctor, add, close. If you want first name, last name, and gender. If you want male doctors only, you're going to come where you have gender, and then criteria. You type in the word male, and then you press run, and you can see the male doctors that we have. Now you have used query to reduce that, and we are going to save, and maybe you can call it male doctors. You come here and save male doctors. And for the female, you come back to design, design view, add, you enter the fields, and then under gender, you write, we have criteria, you write female, and then you run the query, and you're going to see the female doctor that we have in this hospital. Then you save, and you can say female doctor. We can look at is when we want to search using the first letter Maybe, for example, you want to see the doctors whose their names start with letter A. And it's not that hard. Just come back to design view, then doctors, then maybe you can include first name, last name, and gender. Maybe you want doctor's first name that start with A. You're going to write A, and either write small a or capital A. It's not case sensitive. And then you write asterisk. Asterisk is shift 8. And then you run. It's going to give you a list of doctors whose names start with letter A in doctor's first name field. And maybe you can save it. Yes. First name start with A, like that. I hope you have understood. Now the other thing that you're going to learn, let's add some records in this table. Now we come back to medicine table. Let's add price. Now we come to design view. Then we add price. And we use currency. And then under format, we want to use Kenya shilling. And then decimal place, we want it to have 2 decimal place. And the description, it will just describe a certain field. Maybe, for example, you can say medicine price in Kenya shilling. It won't be displayed anyway, but when you come to design view, it's going to explain more about this field name. Then we save, then you say yes. Then when you come back, you will see we have this column added for the price. We are going to indicate the price. Maybe paracetamol is 20 shilling. Like that. And under patient table, we are going to add a new field. It's called, let's put it under date of birth. That row, maybe for it text. Yes. And then this patient is from Molo, Babanjara, Molo, Molo. Like that, and then we close. And back to queries. Now we want to find out patients who come from a certain region, maybe from Molo or from Nakuru or from Elbagon or from the list that we have there. And we are going to come back to design view, query design view, and we are going to come to patient, add, close, and you want maybe name and resident. And here you have criteria. If you want to view patients who come from Molo, just going to type in Molo, and then you run the query. It's going to give you a list of patients who come from Molo. Now we can save our query and call small patient. Now you can see how query is useful. The other thing that we are going to look is when you want to filter using date. When you come back to the patient table, we have date of birth. Patient table, we have date of birth and we have appointment date. And the appointment date, maybe you want to see the patient who admitted in 2020 only, or in 2021 only. And how do you do that? You come to query, design view, and then the patient, add, and then we choose appointment date, and we want to see the patient whose appointment date is only in 2021. How do you do that? We're going to say greater than or equal to 01 dash 01 dash 21, and then we run. It's going to give you a list of patients who are only admitted in 2021. If you wanted 2020, you could just change the symbol and put less than. Yeah, less than. And then when we run, it's going to give us 2020. That's easy as that. Now the next thing, we are going to filter using a currency. Here we have a medicine table. You can see we have medicine that ranges from 20 shillings to 423. Maybe you want which is greater than 200. Now we are going to come back to query, design view, and we go under medicine table, and we want medicine name and the price. Now you want medicine that has greater than 200. You're going to greater than and 200, and then we run. And you can see the medicine that is greater than 200 is amoxicillin. We have the other one and the other one. That's simple. And the other thing that we're going to look at is how to use a field in a query, but we won't display it, but it will help us to find whatever we want. Let's go to patient table. We want a patient name, gender, and resident. We just only want to view patient name and resident. So what we'll do, where we have show, we're going to uncheck this by clicking, and now you can see we have this one and this one. And maybe we can sort, so we come here and sort using patient name, and we say ascending, and then we run our query. Now you can see we have only male patients, and their names have been sorted, and you can see the resident, and they are all male, but you can't see that column which has male, but we have used that column to reduce this query, but we have not used it to present this final query that we have. Now I'm going to save this male patient, save male patient, and I hope you have understood. The other thing that you're going to look is to get records that are in between dates. When you come here where we have date of birth, maybe we want records of patients that were born between 1990 to maybe 2015 only. How do we do that? We will come here where we have query. We'll use design view. Then we pick patient, add, and we want maybe name and date of birth. Now we want patients who were born in 1990 and 2015 only. Now where you have criteria, you're going to add greater than or equal to 01-01-19, and we are going to use and, which means both conditions must be true. And the conditions we have here is must be greater than 1990 and it must be less than 2015, 01-01-15, which means 2015. Now this is how we write the query for in between dates. This is how you write a query for in between dates, and you press run, and it's going to return records for patients who were born between 1990 and 2015. And maybe we can sort them so that you can see. Sort in descending, then run. Now you can see from 2010 all the way to 1990. We don't have someone who was born in 2015. I hope you have understood. Now I'm going to save this and I'm going to say between dates. They're going to say okay. That's all about queries. I hope you have understood how to create queries and how to interact with queries. I'm going to reach there. Let's meet in the next lesson about forms. Welcome to another tutorial. In this tutorial, we're going to learn about forms. In the previous tutorial, we learned about queries and tables. And we said tables gives a complete overview of a certain table, but a form just displays one record at a time. Forms helps you to display live data from the table. It is mainly used to ease the process of data entry. Without further ado, let's start creating a form. You can create a form using a design view or using wizard. You're going to create a form using a wizard. You have to click it, and when you click, it's going to prompt you with this. It looks like the one that we used for query wizard, where we said these available fields indicate the available fields that we have that we can push to this other side where you have the selected fields. And here is where you select the record that we want to add into our form. You can use either tables and you can use the queries that already exist. In this case, let me use a patient table to create this form. And we are going to use all the records. We are going to use this symbol to push all of them to the selected fields. And then you're going to go to next. You will have this place where you will select the layout. We have columnar, we have tabular, we have datasheet, we have justified, we have pivot table, and then you have a pivot chart. You have to select any of them, but you're going to choose a columnar. And then you go to next. And then when you go to next, you're going to select the style. You choose the one that is appealing to your eyes. Let me choose this one called industrial. Then you go to next, and then you give your form a name. So I'm going to call it patient form, and then you finish. And here it is. Let me increase the size. Now the contrast between a form and a table is, this is patient form, and when you come here, we have patient table, and you can see all the records are displayed in one window. And when you come to form, we have only one record is represented in this window. If you want to see the other record, you come here where we have next, and you're going to see the next patient, next, another patient, like that. Now, we said a form helps you to view, or it gives you a user interface. You can interact with it by adding new records, or by editing existing records, or by deleting records that we have. If you want to add a new record, you're going to come where you have the last record, and then you press this key that has the asterisk, and then you're going to add a new record, and then maybe add a new patient. Don't know where we had reached. Let me check. We had reached P0014, P0016, and then patient name James Bobo, and then male, date of birth, medicine, we write the ID. My doctor, we write also the ID D002, like that. Now you have added a new record. You can see we have now 15 records. You can come and edit here and say 15. And then when you come back to our table, you'll see now we have added a new record, this one, which we used a form to enter this data. Let's create another form using the data that we had queried before. You come back to wizard. Now you'll use a query for the male doctors, and then we push everything, and then next we use tabular, and then we use that, next, and then we call it male doctors form, and then we finish. Let's use a design view to create our form. Design view is the one that is going to give us flexibility to add an interactive user interface. The one you just click to for something to happen. And we are going to choose, you can first create using a wizard, and then you go and use design view. For example, the one that we have here for patient, if I come and press design, I'm going to open like this, and you can see here are the records that are from the patient, and on my left hand side we have these, and then you can increase the size of our form, and here we have the labels, which has the field names of our table. And then here we have the text box, which includes the records of the table. Now I want us to add the header to our form, and I'm going to take a label and draw it here, and I'm going to just call it header for us to see it's a header, and then we make it centered like that, and then we center it, and maybe you can increase the font and bring it here at the center. And then where you have the footer, we're going to increase like that, and then we come and draw this label, and we call it footer. and we'll do the necessary by and you select, we increase the font 13, enter, like that. Now we have header and footer, and now we can save and close. And when you open the form that we had, now it is more adorable or more good looking. I have the header and you have the footer. Now I want us to create some buttons to navigate through our form, and we are going to go back to design view, and for us to add the buttons we are going to choose this icon, and then you're going to draw, and when you draw like that, it's going to prompt you this command button wizard. My Microsoft Office 203 has a problem creating these buttons, but you can see where I've clicked. Yeah, now I'm going to use 2016 to show you how to add these buttons. Let me cross this. Let me close that. Come back here. You had reached here where you are putting a button. You pick that, and then when you draw, it's going to prompt you with this window. Now I want our record to go to the next record, so I'm going to pick this, and then I'm going to go to next, and then you can choose either to display text on our command button or to put a picture. The picture is indicated here. You choose that one or this one. You're the one to decide. Or you choose text. For now, me choose text. Then you go to next. Then you can just leave it to be command 19. Then you finish. Now you have this button for taking our form to the next record. Let's create another one for maybe previous record. Just this one here. Then we choose this one for the previous. You're going to come to record navigation, go to previous record, next, use text, next, and then finish. And you can adjust it. Now we have two buttons for previous and going next. We can add another one. You come here, you draw it, let's put it here. And we come where we have record operations. We want to add a new record. You press that. Either use an image or use text. Let's use text. Next. Finish. This is a button for adding record. Let's create another one for deleting. And then we come to record operation and then delete record. Next. Maybe this time we can use a picture. Next. Finish. Now we have these four buttons that can be used to carry out some functions in our database. Let's create the last one, or the second last. We draw it here, and we come to form operation, maybe close form. Then next, let's use that. Finish. So when you press this, maybe you can put it maybe on top here. But when you press, going to close the form that we have, and let's put our last operation. Let's come here where we have form operations. We can print, and then we come here, we have report operations. We can mail, we can open report, preview report, all that. Then you have miscellaneous, where we can auto del, print table, run macro, run query, and then we are going to come back to where you have record operations and choose this one for saving. Next, and then you say save record, and then you go to next, finish. Now you can see we have added some buttons in our database or in our form that are going to help us to navigate and also to save, close our form easily. When you finish, you have to save and exit. You can exit and then you say yes. Now when you come back to our patient form, you can see we have these buttons. You can go to the next record and see, and you can go to the previous record. We can add a new record. Let me add now we have added a new record. Now you want to delete it. You're going to press this delete command, and it will ask you if you want to delete this record, and you're going to say yes. Now you have deleted that record that we have added. Now if you want to close, you're going to use the button here to close that form. Now we are back to 203. Now let's open this form. Now you can see we have those buttons that we added. Now we are going to see how to add an image to our form. Maybe you want to add a logo to this form, maybe hospital logo. How do you do that? You come back to design view, and then maybe let's add it here. You're going to add an image. You're going to come here where we have image. You're going to draw it there, and then you're going to, I don't know if, let me look at my computer. Let me put that one like that. Now this is an image, and when we close, we save and close, you see now our form has an image. That's how you add an image. And when you go back to design view, you can remove it by pressing the delete key on your keyboard like that, and you can add maybe a radio button here or a checkbox, and that's much it. I hope you have understood how to carry out some various functions in Microsoft Access using forms, and I'm going to reach there. Let's meet in the other lesson about reports and macros. Welcome to another tutorial. In this tutorial, we are going to learn about reports and macros, and this will be our last tutorial in Microsoft Access. And we say the report is an object which is designed based on the data in the database and which is used to inform the user of the selected content of the database. A report can be used to generate the various component reports that we need, and in our case we have a hospital database where you have doctor, medicine, and a patient. And maybe you wanted to generate a report of a certain patient that says this patient was treated by a certain doctor, and that doctor administered or diagnosed that patient with certain medicine. Now we are going to create a query first, and we are going to use a query design view, and you want doctor, medicine, and patient. And you're going to say this doctor treated this patient and gave that patient this medicine. And then you're going to sort using a doctor's first name, and then maybe the price of that medicine, and you're going to run this query, and you can see we have Dr. Agnes treated this patient, James Mbogwa, and that patient was given this medicine, and that medicine costs this amount. Now, since we have this query, we're going to save it, and we are going to call it treatment query. And now you want to generate a report about this. Now you're going to come to report. You can use a wizard or you can use design view, but you're going to use a wizard. We are going to search for that query that we have created, treatment query, and you're going to select everything, and then you're going to go to next. When you go to next, it's going to give you this window. He asks you how do you want to view your data, for which it's okay the way it looks like. And then you go to next. Next. If you want to sort your data, you can sort it here using either patient name, medicine name, or price. Then you go to next. You choose the layout that you want and the orientation. If you want portrait or landscape, then you go to next. You choose the style that you want. Use this one, formal or soft gray. Next, and then you give your report a title. And then you finish. Now you have a report that says this doctor treated this patient and gave medicine to this patient, and then it was charged at that how much. Now you have the header here, treatment report, and you have a footer which has the today's date and page number. Now you have page 2, which has the rest of information like that. Now you can see our form is now in a printable format. You can print it and give it to the person who needed this form. Forms are important because they communicate of the things that are happening. Now we have tables which has data, but that data is not useful to us. Whatever is useful is whatever we have right now, like this one, T is information, isn't it? Now, I want us to create another report for maybe patients who come from a certain area, and we have a query for that, and we are going to come to create report by using wizard, and then we want patients from Molo. Here it is, and then you push it to the other side. Next, 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 next. For a patient report, and then you finish. And here it is, a report for patients who come from Molo. And now you can close, then close. So creating reports, it's not that difficult. Another thing that we can do is create a report using table. We have been using queries to create the reports that we have. Let's create it using a table. Let's use doctor's table. Now here you're going to come all the way up, doctor's table. Then we want all the details. Then next. Then you're going to sort using doctor's ID. Next. And then we have justified. We have these. Let's use justified. Maybe landscape. Next. And then next. Finish. And here we have a report that shows the list of doctors. We have a doctor's ID, first name, last name, gender, and the department. So creating a report is not that hard. You create a report using queries or using tables that we have. The last thing that we can discuss about a report is creating a report using a design view. Maybe let's use this one that has more patients. Use design view, and maybe we can increase the size here. And maybe we can add some few adjustment. Maybe you want to add an image to our report. We will come and take this one and add, maybe you wanted to add a logo. Like that, set it here. So here it is, an image. And maybe you wanted to change this heading and call it just mono patient. You're going to remove the word report, and you can just put anything. You can add the header that suits the work that you are doing. Let me call it mono patient, and maybe bring it a little bit to the center, like that. If you wanted to add a footer, you could add it here, below here. And if you wanted to just make some other adjustment, you could just make them here, and where you have our work. And when you are done, you save and you close that form. And when you come back to this form, you will see it has this adjustment that we have added. Now let me close. Let's finish by looking at macros. Macros is a sequence of instructions which can be carried out with a single click of a mouse button or by pressing keys on a keyboard. Let me show you by illustrating a small thing. Now let me come to macros and click new. And action, I want it to, the actions are menu. You can add a menu, you can apply filter, you can add a beep, cancel event, close. But I just want us to choose a message box. And then inside the message box, I want us to add something here. Let's add a message. Let's say, hello world, it's our message. And then we run. Let's give it a name. Greetings. Okay, now you can see we have this message box that says hello world, and you can just say, okay. So you have created a message box that says hello world. That is a macros. And you can give a title. Maybe if you want it to appear on that window, maybe let it title. You will see the word title. And then when you run, yes, you will see the word title here. You could add any name, and also here you could add any name. So this is an example of macros. Thanks for listening. My name is Peter, and I'm going to read there. Goodbye.